Chapter 3, the 6 elements of successful investing, various methods compared and contrasted. That is a mouthful. My ghostwriter helped me come up with that very descriptive, detailed title.
Fantastic.
Okay, listen. So I put more than $15,000 and hundreds of hours of work into my first property. And you know what? I eventually sold it. I made $55,000. My second property required $6,000 of repairs and 60 hours of work and made over $100,000 when I sold it. I never set foot, nor did I put a penny into my third property, however, which I sold and made $20,000 on. Which deal yielded me the greatest return? You know, even though my second deal made me $100,000, 6 figures, it still required a lot of time, effort, and money. My third property, however, was the winner, where it took the fewest hours, the least amount of time, the least amount of money. And I'm just going to step off for a second. I'm starting this chapter with this analogy because I want you to get clear that making the most money, being the most profitable, isn't always the most important aspect. In fact, there's several different aspects that need to be considered. And here's what I would say they are. I'd write these down: time, effort, risk, service, market volatility, and profitability. You know, when I began creating the Straight Path system, I wasn't just looking to make the most money. I wanted a system that would make the greatest profits after considering these other core factors. So everything being equal, I prefer to make $20,000 in a few hours of my time versus making $40,000 with hundreds of hours of my time. Does that make sense? Process that. You know, I don't care how lucrative a potential opportunity is if it's highly risky. I stay away from it. A strategy that may make me tons of money in a hot market could very well tank when the market turns. So there's a lot of things, Stephen, that we like to consider when we talk about real estate and all the different strategies when you compare them to one another. You know, what sets the Straight Path system apart from almost every other form of real estate investing is one key word: sustainability.
Sustainability.
I like that subliminal messaging, Stephen. You keep doing that. Do it again.
REICglobal.com.
Strategies and systems that focus on profit alone may make money in the short term, but they are unsustainable. And this applies to every system that does not consider each of these 6 key elements equally and holistically.
6 key elements.
These inconsistent, unreliable forms of real estate include the following: rentals, fix and flips, lease options, spec building, equity leveraging, distress sales, including short sales, foreclosures, land development, residential development, commercial development, multi-unit investing. The Straight Path system is the most sustainable form of real estate I've ever come across. And it was created by studying all forms of real estate investing and simply recognizing that there is a best way, identifying, incorporating the best elements of each, eliminating the flaws, using the hybrid methodology, and then putting together in a streamlined, coherent, replicable, predictable, and safe system.
The Straight Path system.
It's the same system I continually use to apply with unwavering dedication in any market in my system. It allows me to serve individuals, families, society in ways that are impossible to accomplish with other systems. And you know what? This is kind of the cool thing. I want to launch into all of these right now and talk about why each one's important to me. Because if you have thoughts about real estate, this is your purging opportunity. This isn't in the book, guys. I want you to purge your thoughts, and I want you to compare your paradigm and your perception of real estate to these 6 criteria. Let's talk about time.
Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. That's Jim Rohn, author of 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness.
I love Jim. Listen, real estate is very complex. It's multifaceted. And from finding deals and negotiating to signing contracts and managing properties, it requires massive amounts of knowledge and time. However, not all systems are created equal. Each form of real estate has specific intrinsic time commitments. Question: do you want a no-time real estate investment or a full-time?
Ooh. No time?
Yes, correct. Ding, ding, ding. Correct answer, Stephen. 300 points. So never, ever underestimate the value of time. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see in would-be investors. People get excited about the prospect of real estate investing. They jump in head first. They spend way too much time doing the wrong things or doing things that they shouldn't be doing themselves. And the inability to delegate and thus maximize time is the curse to the do-it-yourself system. Successful, sustainable real estate investing requires that you learn how to reduce the time you expend while at the same time increasing your profits. The more time you spend on any individual deal, the less time you have to spend on creating multiple deals themselves. Stephen, tell us about your first house and all the efforts that you put into the fix-up, right? I mean, I was there for some of it. I flew out and we spent like 3 full days with 2 hours of sleep each night on that thing?
Well, let's be honest with ourselves. First of all, Kris does nothing halfway, and every time he gets into a project, he will knock it out faster and more efficiently than anyone you know. We refaced the whole front of my home, actually tearing out a room and creating that room into a porch, and we did that all in about 24 hours.
Well, do you remember?
It was ridiculous.
We did the carpeting on that thing. We did the siding up all around. We put the pillars in that were brand new.
Yes, everything. I mean, it was fantastic. But
that was cool.
But the thing is people often will jump into these investment properties, spending all the time in the world, getting their tool butt out and swinging the hammer when that's really not the smartest way. It's not the fastest way either.
So consider these questions. How much time will this investment require? Are there ways that I can reduce the amount of time I spend on each deal?
And this is my favorite. How can I leverage the time, talents, and efforts of Kris? Of other people while still managing the investment responsibly.
Okay, so consider the time. The next thing, and by the way, if you're looking at an investment that is more like a job, meaning that it's going to take a part-time or full-time effort, that's called a job. That's not an investment. There's a really big difference.
Separate those two, please.
Yeah. Okay, the second criteria, the core elements is effort. And I like this. In the book, we made this little graphic of this guy pushing a really big square uphill. Looks like it's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
A strong work ethic can both be a virtue and a weakness. I've known many people who are proud that they are hard workers, and yet oftentimes working hard gets in the way of working smart. So these hard people, they often burn out when results don't meet expectations. Does your real estate strategy require hard work or smart work? Are you engaged in actual productivity or more activity? Just because a person exerts energy doesn't mean that he or she is producing real value. If that were true, you could shovel holes in your backyard and become a millionaire just through the activity of shoveling. Productivity results in greater value. In other words, it results in profit in one form or another. Many real estate strategies require the exertion of energy that is often wasted. For example, a lot of fix and flip practitioners don't realize the difference between market value and perceived value. What they do is they put a lot of money and time and effort into cosmetic fixes that don't raise the true market value of a home. Whereas straight path real estate, on the other hand, we capture the market value without wasting all that energy. I once met a man, who had purchased 14 investment properties in a city 3 hours from his home. After a year of 6-hour commutes, he got burned out, sold the properties, and even though he had been making money, he learned the lesson that profit isn't the only consideration when it comes to investing.
So let's talk about some investment analysis questions. Number 1, how much effort and hands-on involvement will this investment require?
How can I reduce my effort?
Are the returns worth the effort?
Is this sustainable? Can I keep putting forth this much energy for a long period of time, or will I burn out? Okay, so that's the second one.
So number 3, let's talk about risk. The innovators I know are successful to the extent to which they define risks and confine them. That's Peter Drucker, author of Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
So you've heard the cliche that if you want to increase your returns, you've got to increase your risk, right? I mean, if you want to make a lot of money, then you've got to also have a lot of risk. Well, I'm sorry, that's not my paradigm. That's not my way of thinking. Do you think that building a business was risky for John Assaraf, Michael Gerber, Donald Trump? Do you really believe that you have to choose between a conservative approach and low returns and a risky approach with high returns? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't. We're crushing that paradigm with the straight path investing system that says that your least risk also comes with the highest returns. That cliche is a deception perpetuated by institutions and individuals with vested interests. By convincing you to take on more risk, you can actually transfer the risk to you. High-risk investing isn't investing at all. It's gambling. It's for those who get a thrill from the game or for those who didn't work hard enough to earn their money. Easy come, easy go. It's certainly possible to win big with high-risk investments, but it's more likely that you'll lose big. Is this really how you want to live your life? Would you prefer to feel anxious or secure about your investing choices? When investing is done right, it is both safe and lucrative. And listen to that, safe and lucrative. It doesn't require you to have more control and to be more actively involved than traditional investing, but it's doable. And our clients prove that every single day.
Here's an experience from some of our clients, John and Diane. One of the fantastic benefits of the Strait Path system is the mitigated risk. With one of our investment properties, the buyer tenants we had were unable to continue with the purchase of the home. The down payment they had made toward the house was enough for us to cover just a couple of mortgage payments, if it came to that. Luckily, we were able to find new tenants within the month, so we only had to cover one mortgage payment with that reserve down payment. The new buyer tenants were able to invest even more to build immediate equity. They have been fantastic and are making improvements to the home while working toward ownership. They are planning to attend classes to prepare themselves for successful home ownership. This system really reduces risk for everyone, including tenants.
Personally, Stephen, I'm really averse to high risk, and I strive to do everything in my power to reduce risk and create certainty. I think that's why by the age of 30 here, having hundreds and hundreds of homes, even in such a down economy, the reason why I haven't gotten hurt is because this element right here about risk was one of the most important factors for me of actually all 6 core factors. And you know what? This is also why I reject 401ks and IRAs and other similar vehicles. They're way too risky. I have far too little control over them. It's always why I shun any form of speculative real estate investing. 80% of all strategies are speculative. I've analyzed every form of real estate to be able to do just that. High-flying, risky strategies have no place on the straight path, or else it would be a crooked path. No amount of money is worth the fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. And interestingly enough, our system makes higher and more consistent returns than any other while reducing the risk. This may sound paradoxical given how often we're taught that high risk equals high returns. But you know what? Once you really come to understand the system, it becomes common sense. Here's some analysis questions to consider.
How risky is this investment?
What's the likelihood of its success and failure?
What guarantees does the investment carry?
Is this investment collateralized?
Do I have a solid exit strategy?
What options do I have if things go wrong?
How can I reduce my risk as much as possible?
Awesome. Okay. Now we're going to shift to another core element, and it's about service to individuals and society.
So let's start off with a quote by Zig Ziglar, author of See You at the Top. If you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Well, and that's the weirdest thing, Stephen, is because I love this book by Ayn Rand that I recently read. And it's called Atlas Shrugged. And the book, it talked about ethical egoism. The book was about that it's not altruism that, I'm just a good saint and a good person that wants to help other people. No. The best way to help myself is to help other people. And then it becomes purely mutual. So every investment system that creates a win-lose transaction and elevates investors at the expense of a buyer will inevitably fail. Get-rich-quick schemes built on manipulation and deception are the fastest route to failure and loss of self-respect and destruction. The only sustainable, legitimate, and worthy path to wealth is to create real value for others. In other words, to serve people on their terms. If you think that the only way to create wealth in real estate is to take advantage of the ignorance, fear, or greed of others, you're reading the wrong book. If your intention is to solely make as much money as possible for just you know what? You're going to end up earning only a fraction of what's possible if you would shift your focus to helping others. Service to others is a key to wealth creation, and those who serve the most earn the most. Exploiters may enjoy wealth, but they don't enjoy peace of mind, self-respect, and the wealth is the most and is almost always very, very short-lived.
So here's some more investment analysis questions. How well does this system or strategy serve others?
Well, and pause. If you're an investor and you've got a rental, great, you're providing a roof for someone that needs one, but you're getting feedback on how much service you're on how much of a service you're providing. I mean, are they taking care of the house? Do they give a hoot about you? Or is this just kind of a standard operation? Are you really serving them big time? If not, then guess what? You're probably not going to earn big time. Here's another question. How could it better serve others? Or is the system fair and equitable?
Does it create win or lose scenarios in any form and to any degree? Or excuse me, win-lose scenarios, I should say, in any form and to any degree.
Does it take advantage of fear, greed, or desperation?
Will it put everyone else involved in the transaction in a better or a worse situation?
Okay. Number 5 of the core values, market volatility. Anyone who thinks it's impossible to make money through real estate in a diving or stagnant market is using the wrong system. That paradigm is called speculation. Let's talk about spec building for a moment. What does it mean to speculate?
Well, you're gambling. You're hoping that the market will do something.
Yeah, the market's got to cooperate with you, and then you can make money.
Correct.
But what if it doesn't cooperate, or what if it goes down?
Well, then you lose.
I want to find a real estate strategy that works both in up and down markets. So when we talk about market volatility, why would anyone want to spend time and money and effort building something that will eventually crumble because of market forces beyond their control? Why would anyone want to be subject to the whims of the market? You know, of course, nobody wants insecurity and instability, but most people don't know how to create security and stability with their investments. They follow the mainstream financial media, which teaches the diversification and dollar cost averaging are the keys to financial security. The implicit message is that you can do nothing to control your investments. Since you are subject to the fickleness of the market, the only route to take is to invest in a lot of different things and then hope and pray that everything doesn't plummet all at the same time. And of course, we've seen that happen.
True. Now, Warren Buffett, who obviously is the richest man in the world, or one of,
Yeah,
right?
I'd take advice from him.
Investor and philanthropist, he said, quote, wide diversification is only required when investors do not understand what they are doing.
I love that, dude. I love that quote. Yeah. I mean, do most people get that? You know, a lot of people say, Kris, well, where's your diversification in your system? Well, you know what? If it's a good proven system, it works in up and down markets and it produces consistent returns regardless of market forces, then why would I want to diversify? Diversification is for people that are scared that their choices aren't good ones.
Right.
Why? I mean, right?
Right. My choices are all risky, so I need to make sure that I spread the risk out a little bit.
So the truth is that long-term financial stability can be created. It's possible to secure almost any full immunity. Did I say possible? Really? Wow, it's possible to secure almost full immunity from market fluctuations. Yep, that's true. And in fact, the straight path system doesn't even depend on appreciation to be profitable. I like to be really careful in my language here, because here's the truth, guys. Are you looking for a no-risk real estate investment? Steven, does a no-risk real estate investment exist?
It does not.
No, all you can do is mitigate and reduce your risk as much as possible and be smart in the market in the way that you purchase and buy real estate. So straight path followers, they view appreciation as icing on the cake, right? I mean, it's nice to have, but my cake is still cake without the frosting.
And I love that red velvet cake.
Good. So market appreciation is beyond our control. We cannot control it. However, if we're smart and we know the times to buy, and if we're always buying below the market, chances are it's going to be, and later we'll talk about it as one of our 5 profit centers, that it can be there as icing on the cake. But to depend on it would mean that the market has to go in a certain direction for you to be profitable. And that's just another side of risk. That's the other side of the coin.
Exactly. So let's talk about some more questions here that you need to be asking yourself. Will this system or strategy work in every market?
Can I earn a profit when the market is going up and if the market is going down?
How protected am I from market volatility?
How far does the market have to drop before I am adversely affected?
Do I have a long-term strategy to profit if the market does drop so low that it hurts me?
How big is the market for this investment? Is it broad or a niche market?
And then what percentage of people will be able to afford this investment?
Perfect. So let's get to the 6th and final core element as we move into this chapter, move through it. It's profitability. I mean, yep, it's also got to make good money. It's not how much money you make, but how much you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. Robert Kiyosaki, Who Took My Money. For most investors, profitability is the primary and in some case sole factor used to decide whether or not to invest in something. People fly from deal to deal with no system in place, and like an eager puppy, they run to whoever will pet it. They rush into any deal as long as they're convinced that it will make them money. Unfortunately for them, their profits are as fleeting as their focus. They make good money on one deal, average money on another, and lose money on the next. They're reduced to calculating returns based on averages over time rather than the performance of each individual deal.
That's powerful.
So investors who evaluate profit and all other factors are those who tend to spend money as fast as they make it. They have to keep making it in order to support their extravagant lifestyle, which creates a reinforcing cycle. They become addicted to money and lose the ability to put it into proper perspective as a tool and a byproduct rather than an end in itself. And at the end of the book, I'm going to actually talk about financial liberation and how you can be free from money so that you can make a lot of it, so that you can provide powerful service and move through this world doing some extraordinary things, like Bill Gates that saves like 20,000 lives a day on the African continent. I'd say that's pretty extraordinary. So when we talk about profitability, there are 5 profit centers, and we're going to get into these a little bit later as well, but I want to hit them right now because one of the things that I love about this system is that there are 5 different major ways of making money. The interesting thing about it is that if you're profitable in one of the 6 factors considered for the everyday deal, the straight path system is still far more profitable than all other forms of investing. In other words, the straight path system is still the best even when profitability is an investor's sole or primary focus. And this is because the system offers 5 profit centers. 1, discount equity. 2, cash flow. 3, down payments. 4, appreciation. And 5, tax benefits. Number 1, discount equity. Discount equity is the difference between the market value and the purchase price of a home. And our finding system helps you secure properties with at least 15% equity and often much, much more. And depending on the size of the home and its discount purchase price, you may make more money on one purchase than you make all year in your current job. For example, if a home is worth $275,000 and you can purchase it at a 15% discount for $233,000, you'll make $41,250 off of purchasing the home alone. And by the way, Stephen, when was the last time you could snap your fingers and in signing a dotted line, improve your net worth by $41,000?
It only happens with real estate.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And so I've got a bunch of charts here. I'm going to see if I can, what I want to do with these 5 profit centers, if you, in your mind, you can imagine I've got this house and I'm going to actually demonstrate how the growth of the profits keep increasing on that home with each one of these profit centers. The second one is cash flow, what's cash flow, Stephen?
Basically, it's the difference between the money you pay out and the money you're getting in.
You got it. So I've got a mortgage, and once I've paid it, whatever's left over, that's my cash flow. Now I've made money off my equity. Now I've made money off my monthly cash flow. The third one is down payments, which is something we actually technically call option consideration. That's what a tenant gives us when they come in as a down payment. So now I bought a home. I got $40,000 of equity. I make $300 a month on it. And the people gave me $5,000 moving in. That's 3 profit centers. The fourth one, Stephen, is?
Appreciation. Now, appreciation is the rise in value of a property over time due to increased demand. What's notable about the straight path real estate is that, like we said before, we don't rely on appreciation to turn a profit, though we do account for it.
Yeah, there's a difference between counting on it and accounting for it, right? I don't account on it to happen to make me money, but I'm going to account for it because I'm a wise student and I understand that if I buy in the lowest part of the market, which by the way, that is counterintuitive. Investors are countercyclical, and when everyone is buying, you should be selling. When everyone's selling, you should be buying. And so actually, if you're buying at the low part of the market, well, as the market improves, you're also going to really cash in on this fourth profit center. We got equity, cash flow, down payments, appreciation. The fifth one.
Number 5 is tax benefits. Tax law allows homeowners to deduct mortgage interest from their taxes. This is a huge advantage in straight path real estate since the goal is to purchase as many homes as possible. Now, with a fixer-upper, investors receive the first profit center and, if they're lucky, the fourth. But they have no cash flow. They don't get a down payment, and capital gains taxes often wipe out any earnings. With rentals, Investors enjoy tax benefits and some benefit from property appreciation. They receive no down payment, however, and they're lucky if they get a good deal up front and receive a positive cash flow. Once again, the Strait Pass system offers investors all 5 income streams.
And Stephen, do you see where we're going here?
Oh, huge.
We're actually about to shift it in the second half of this chapter into saying, okay, we're very clear on what these 6 elements are. Now we're going to make our case and say, let's compare it to the most popular strategies and actually illustrate financially, scientifically, with math and numbers and money, exactly why it's better. I don't want to just be here and say, hey, we got the best strategy. Why? So here's some final analysis questions for you to consider when it comes to profit, such as, how much profit can I create from this investment?
Am I benefiting from as many profit centers as possible, or am I missing out on their potential sources of profitability?
Is the profit worth the amount of time, effort, and risk involved?
How certain is my profit from this deal, even if the market drops?
Am I deriving profits in an ethical manner?
Do I have a system in place to create sustainable, consistent, and predictable profits, or is this a one-time strategy?
Okay, so now we're going to have some fun here. What I want to do, Stephen, is I actually want to go through and we're going to look at some competing forms of real estate. And I'm going to look at it from the perspective of what's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All right.
Okay, and so I actually want to go through a number of these. I'm going to get started with rentals, but we're not just going to look at rentals. We're going to look at fix and flips, lease options, distress sales, multi-unit investing, spec building. There's a lot that we could consider. Let's go through the good, bad, and ugly, and let's start with rentals.
Okay, sounds good.
They're the most common form of real estate that the average investor will get involved with. So here's the good points. Rentals create a monthly cash flow, though many rental owners experience negative cash flow their first several years. Rentals are usually in demand, depending on the type and size of home. The buy and hold strategy means that appreciation and long-term profitability are almost guaranteed as long as the investor holds onto the property long enough. And investors enjoy tax savings by writing off mortgage interest payments. So with rentals, a lot of good stuff.
So we're not saying it's horrible, right?
No, people make millions of dollars with rentals. My gut feeling is that most get out of the game after a couple of years
Right.
because they didn't anticipate all the work and the cost.
So let's talk about the bad then. Number 1, investors expend significant time and effort fulfilling landlord duties. I've been there. On paper, a rental...
Well, dude, pause.
Okay.
What was that like for you to be living in this state and in Florida have a home with that prostitute bringing clients into her home with
Well, I don't know.
police calling and the
I don't know if
thing,
she's a prostitute, but she was a stripper. We knew that for sure.
Okay.
She was bringing clientele home. I don't know what that means. But drugs were being trafficked to my home. I ended up having to pay her $1,000 just to get out of my property. And all my previous neighbors were calling me saying, Stephen, why in the world did you put this person in your home? And I'm trying to put my hands up and say, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Again, things we do as
Colin, after all that money
ignorant
you put into it,
investors.
too.
Oh yeah, it was horrible. Number 2, on paper, a rental seems to be a good holding strategy, but people sell rentals in a few short years, often at a loss because they get so fed up with them. I know I got fed up with mine, still have it, but anyway, it's very difficult to get a positive cash flow from rentals in the very first few years. And then number 4, high occupancy turnover means that investors have to get new tenants frequently.
Yeah. Now that's just the bad. Let's go into the ugly.
Okay.
It's relatively common for renters to damage the home. In some cases, significant. And while you're picking up a little bit of a deposit up front, that typically, even with a good renter, doesn't cover the basic wear and tear and clean the carpet and fix maybe some of the problems with the house that can come. Investors responsible for all repairs resulting in high out-of-pocket expenses. The investor must paint the inside of the home, replace carpet periodically, pay for broken furnaces and air conditioners, garage doors, appliances. The investor is on call 24/7. You never know when the darn thing's going to come calling, and when it does, you get this sick pit like, oh, not you again. Some rentals are located in undesirable neighborhoods. That can certainly increase the risk. And then, of course, rental returns significantly less value than properties acquired using the Strait Pass system, as shown on a table on page 66 and 67 that we're getting to.
Well, let's real quick just talk about when you buy your own home. Okay, you're in your own home. How much work is it to keep your own home up, to maintain your own home, right? And you care about it. You're maintaining it. You're fixing it up and doing these other things. When you get someone in a rental situation who doesn't care about the home, they're not trying to purchase the home, they have no pride or ownership in the home, how much more money are you going to be putting into that type of a situation? So most people, when they first get into real estate investing, they don't think about these things, although they're obvious, right?
Yeah, got it. The next thing is, let's talk about fix and flips briefly.
Okay.
Now, I just want to launch into my own story with this because on one property I did make a $20,000 profit. And I thought, man, this was so cool. This was sight unseen. I had never been out to the property. I made $20,000 and I thought, you know what, maybe flipping is really going to be my game. And I got so excited that I remember locating, it was a higher end home, but it had over $100,000 of equity. And I thought, this is it, man. This is my lucky break. I'm going to buy this thing $100,000 of equity, and then I'm going to turn around and sell it at a big discount, and I'm going to profit $60,000. And you know what? It was right at the turn of the market. I was speculating. I was in the high end. I wasn't below the median. And I didn't have enough discount for the size of the home. And week after week, I kept lowering the price. And it got to a point where when I eventually sold the house, I was lucky enough to only lose $5,000. Because you know what? It could have certainly been way worse than that. Would have really changed my path. So when I talk about flips and fixing, let's actually just look at doing a basic comparison to make sure that we've got some clarity on that, to look at the good and the bad and the ugly and see if that's something that really makes sense. The good, when it's done right, you can buy homes at substantial discounts, secure some upfront equity, and mitigate some risk selling to make a profit.
And that stops the good section of flipping.
There's only one good thing.
Awesome.
It's a lot. Let's get to the bad, though.
Let's get to the bad here. Okay, the bad. The difference between market value and perceived value often dictates that relatively little of your time, money, and effort will result in increased actual value.
And now some people, Steve, would actually argue that that's a good thing. They're like, oh, this is exciting. I get to swing the hammer. I get to go out on site, be on the property.
I've done that.
That's called a job. That's
right.
Not real estate investing.
Yes. Number 2, lending requirements make it extremely difficult to get an accurate appraisal within a few months of purchasing a home. You may buy a home for $150,000 and then put $40,000 into it in the hopes of getting an appraisal for $230,000. But an $80,000 jump in value within a few months is a huge red flag for banks. So appraisers are less willing to account for it, which makes flipping homes or flips more difficult to sell quickly.
Yeah. And then, you know what, let's get into the ugly.
Okay.
And here I've got a whole pile on the ugly side. We'll go through it quickly here. Most people don't consider that every variable that goes into actually processing a home. In fact, once in a while I'll sit down with a client, Stephen, that wants to flip a home, and they're like, oh my gosh, I bought this home with $40,000 of equity. And they're sitting down and they're thinking, this is it. This is my lucky break. And I start going through the numbers and I say, okay, if you buy this home, here's some things that you're going to want to consider. You've got the agent fees, the closing fees, the selling fees, the fix up, the repairs, the discount on the market, the mortgage payments in the meantime. And you know what, when you add all those up, what appears to be $40,000 of equity quickly turns into negative.
It gets dwindled down really fast.
$10,000. And so fix and flips may look really good, but the ugly thing is that unless you're experienced, if anything, I say flipping is for experts. And by the way, if you're an expert, you're probably not flipping.
You're probably not.
You know, most flips got to be purchased with, in my opinion, 40 to 50% discounts. The last home I flipped, I didn't even want to flip it, but I bought it with a partner and they were eager to have that experience. And we bought it with a 51% discount. That's a phenomenal. If we had held on to that home, it would have made us $900, $1,000 a month. But instead, wanted to have the flip experience. We sold it. And you know, we made 40 grand. That was pretty cool. But how often do you see a 51% discount in the market? And had we held on to it, we would have made close to $150,000, not $40,000.
Oh, that was a big home too.
It was a big home. In fact, I think you oversaw the.
I did a lot of the fix up on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So. All things considered, the most successful flippers find that returns on their time and money equals a decent paying job, or sometimes a not very decent paying job. It's just a job at the end of the day, guys. Just because you can swing a hammer, don't quit your day job to jump into real estate. Again, it's a job. It's not investing. There's also, however, a high risk of market dependency. And that's what my story was really to illustrate, is that the market just needs to shiver a little bit. And all of a sudden, something that looked like a massive opportunity can quickly turn into your biggest downfall.
Well, typically when people are trying to flip a home, they're hoping to turn it over in just a few months. If those few months turn into 6 months or a year, all of a sudden, all that empty room, right? All that extra equity that you thought you had, it's gone.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, next, let's talk about lease options. Now,
Okay.
for those of you that don't know what lease options are, that's where you're doing something similar to compassionate financing. You're putting people in homes, but often there's really no intention to help the people buy the homes. You're collecting some premiums. Let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. By far, this is one of the better strategies. So there's a good pile of good here. You know, like rentals, lease options create a monthly cash flow, and you can generate a higher cash flow doing this than you can rentals.
Definitely.
Number two, you get a higher monthly lease payment to improve the investor's debt-to-income ratio. So debt-to-income ratio comes down. Investors collect a non-refundable down payment up front. There's no property maintenance for the investor. And responsibilities for repairs, improvements, those fall on the tenants. There are some tax savings, just like with rentals. The investor saves 6% on realtor fees when they sell. That's a huge one. That can be $10,000 to $15,000 in savings. And for tenants, lease options can be an excellent way to achieve home ownership, which is otherwise unavailable to them. So tenants love having a place that they can really call home, make some improvements, call the place home. And lease options buy first-time tenants the ability to repair their credit, prepare for traditional financing. They can walk away from the home with no liability. The home's not represented on their credit. There's a lot of good things that can come about with something called a lease option. In comparison, we've got something significantly more improved upon. But what are some of the bad things, Steve?
Some of the bad, traditional lease option contracts create an inevitable win-lose scenario on the back end sale by setting a purchase price up front. If the property appreciates, the investor loses. If the property depreciates, the tenant loses.
That is my biggest. That's my biggest beef, dude. I did that for my first 30 homes.
I
and
remember
I was
that.
like, the market went up. I just left a pile of money on the table. I feel like an idiot.
Right.
Oh, the market went down. I got screwed.
Right.
It's like, you know what? To set a purchase price says that you can predict the future. And economists can't predict the future with a home in a particular neighborhood 1 or 2 or 3 years down the road.
Right.
And so where a lease option actually tries to do that and control something, a market force that it can't, someone will lose. The chance of you getting a win-win situation, not very likely.
And with most lease options, they have a high failure rate, meaning that most tenants will not be able to secure traditional financing by the end of the term. And that's for a lot of reasons. We can go into that later.
Yeah. And then I'll hit the ugly, right? The good, bad, the ugly. The ugly of it is that there are a lot of investors that purposely leverage this to predatorily take advantage of people in the market. They get people in knowing, hey, this person actually, they're a blue collar worker. They make some great money. And I also know that they're never going to work on their credit. And I'm not going to encourage them to. Because if they don't, I'm going to win big.
Right.
Okay.
Which brings us to distressed sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Distressed sales include short sales, foreclosures, auctions, divorce sales, etc. Scouring the landscape for distressed sales, or what I call ambulance chasing, is a common tactic.
What you call or what I call?
I am Kris Krohn.
Oh, okay, good. Just make sure. Okay, good.
Fantastic. The idea
My
is
ego's flaring up here.
The idea is to find people.
I wrote this book.
That's right.
Just kidding, dude.
Oh boy. The idea is to find people in bad and or urgent situations who need to sell quickly. Whatever the reason, these sellers are willing to sell their homes at far below the market value. I'm referring to here to, or let me start that over. Kris is referring here to
okay,
a specific way of finding properties rather than a complete strategy for investing. I've included it because it can be employed in all forms of real estate, but it must be understood that straight path real estate rejects the negative aspects of searching for distressed sales. So let's talk about the good, Kris.
Well, the good thing is that you can buy a home at a substantial discount, and if you do it properly, there's an opportunity to perform a service depending on your approach. And I say depending on your approach because I'm going to skip right to one of the uglies, which is that I remember the very first time I went knocking on someone's door. I had looked up the county records. I had someone mentoring me in this form of real estate. The home had over $100,000 of equity. They were close to losing the home. And I was knocking on the door saying, "Hi, I've done some research. I know you've got a lot of equity in your home. Will you give me a big chunk of it if I can keep you from losing your house?" Yeah, I mean, how do you look at that? Are you really helping someone, or are you preying on? Are you chasing an ambulance? Well, it really comes, and it's not fair for me to pass judgment here one way or the other. I think it just comes down to the heart of the investor at the end of the day. But the thing is, am I seeking out divorcee sales because I know I'll make money there, or does it fall into my lap with a situation where someone's getting a divorce and they're asking for help? I think that those are two different sides of the coin.
Oh, this is really hard. I actually, for a while, did this with my father-in-law down in Florida. And wow, you knock on the door and someone who is in that situation, who is in denial, coming to the door with this like livid look on their eye,
Oh,
you know, you're and literally
where's the shotgun?
literally for my father-in-law and I, we wanted to help them out. We knew that there was money in the opportunity as well, but we knew that there was a way where we could actually help them and give them an opportunity to start something new. But even so, gosh,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah. Some of the bad things, Steve, that come with this is that short sales and foreclosures in particular, they require a high degree of specialized knowledge that a lot of people don't get. There's fierce competition amongst investors. When you go knocking on these doors, they've already received 80 letters.
Oh, yeah.
It generally takes a lot of time and effort to learn how to identify the right kind of property. You've got to start going for sale by owner. There's no MLS, there's no network.
No.
So now you're driving around hundreds of hours.
Yes.
Totally different. And you know what? The distressed properties, they become increasingly difficult to find in boom markets. So in other words, the strategy is market dependent. So when we talk about distressed sales, there's some things about it that I don't like. Now, what I want to do here is we've been talking about rentals and flips and lease options and distressed sales. I want to take the most popular of those that most people do. And what I want to do is I want to just do a quick comparison of the straight path system to renting on a financial level. And I've got the graph I'm going to go through. You're just going to have to take my word for it unless you pick up the book. We're talking about a 5-bedroom, 2-bath home. It's worth $235,000. We buy it for $200,000. We put some money down. We only owe $160,000. We've got an interest rate 6.5%, let's say for right now. We've got a payment with taxes, insurance of $1,150. If I am renting, then I'm going to get a deposit. I'm going to at best break even on my cash flow, but I've got repairs and management. And after 5 years, let's compare the straight path to renting. After 5 years, I've lost almost $11,000, $10,740. If I were to sell the home at that time, taking the same assumptions into consideration with some basic repairs and agent fees, I'm actually going to total make $15,000. But when I offset that with the $10,000 I've lost, my real profit is $4,560 after 5 years of renting, being a landlord. That's like less than $1,000 a year for a part-time job, right?
That's not great.
But if we do the exact same house, the exact same assumptions, then actually we're making over $21,000 just in holding this for the first 5 years. And actually by the time we sell it after 5 years, at the same time we would the rental, we're actually making a total of $76,000 as opposed to $45,000. That's like 15 times more profitable than a rental. Why would anyone ever want to do a rental again?
Right. It doesn't make sense.
No, I used to do rentals, and I vow right now to my dying day, I will never do one ever again. So here's the other graph that I get super passionate about that I think is one of the big values in the book is I've got this grid, and I want you to imagine this. On the left side, the grid says, I've got these line items of time, effort, risk, service, market volatility, profitability, profit centers. We've talked about these. But then going across the top, I have rentals, fixer-uppers, lease options, and the straight path. And I did this matrix here to actually compare them all to each other so that you could actually look across the board, and in every category what you find is that the straight path is the best. For example, take time. Going across the top, rentals is a
part-time job.
Fixer-uppers is
excessive.
And lease options?
Minimal.
But straight path is also?
Minimal.
Okay, so straight path and lease option tie when it comes to time. Mm-hmm. Effort. Rentals are?
Part-time job.
Fixer-uppers?
Excessive.
So excessive effort.
Work, yeah, effort.
Lease options are?
Minimal effort.
And straight path is?
Minimal effort.
Okay, so very similar there. Let's talk about risk. With rentals, it's?
Minimal.
With fix and flipper uppers?
High risk.
With lease options?
It's minimum risk.
But with the straight path?
Is almost none.
Almost none. Now, when we get to service component, this gets really fun. With rentals, it's
moderate service.
Okay, with fixer uppers and flips.
Low service.
With lease options?
Medium or potential. There's some potential there to be harmful.
It is. It's potential to be harmful. But with the straight path?
Is a maximum service.
It's maximum. If we look at the market volatility, rentals, it's?
Minimal risk.
Fixer uppers and flips.
High risk, best in hot markets.
Lease options.
Moderate risk, best. Wow, I can't speak either. Best in recovering markets.
Guys, it's hitting midnight. My brain and my tongue are disconnecting.
The law of diminishing returns right now.
Wow, I didn't know where that came from. That's cool. And then the straight path?
Works in any market.
Okay, so far with time, effort, risk, service, market volatility, none of them are comparing. Let's just real quick hit profitability with rentals,
Minimal in the short term.
fixer-uppers and flips,
Very volatile.
lease options,
Moderate.
straight path.
Maximum.
Oh, I love it. And there's more on this stuff, but ultimately the chapter concludes to say that so far we've introduced you to why the straight path real estate system was created. You've learned that it requires a specific mindset, a worldview, in contrasting with the traditional 401k mindset. You've learned that it's intended for everyone as a replacement to outdated and severely flawed retirement strategies and products. You've been given a brief overview of the system so that the details of each individual part will make sense within the bigger context. You've learned the 6 key elements of successful investing and why these make the straight path superior to any other real estate system. Now, with this foundation moving forward, we're going to be able to explore each of the 4 phases of the system. And that's what the next 4 chapters is. And actually, I'm going to bring in some experts to discuss this with us so that you'll get a chance to learn how to create a portfolio game plan that will help you stay on the path. You'll identify assets that may be hidden from you now, assets that you can leverage immediately for your benefit. You'll be given the secrets on how to consistently find properties at big discounts. You'll learn how important it is to finance them the right way to keep on buying. You're going to learn how to do the compassionate financing, the most profitable system, period. You'll learn how this serves people and why the service matters. You'll learn how to structure contracts to provide the greatest protection, both for you, for your tenants. You'll learn how to maximize your returns through 5 profit centers.
Now we're getting excited.
So let's get started and create your portfolio game plan. But first, I'm going to bed.
Good night.